Isn't this the time that I'm supposed to say spank that subscribe button?
Yeah, spank it.
Subscribe if you like, guys. I'm not gonna say spank. I'm not exaggerating when I say this. This probably might be the tastiest way to eat potatoes. Tastiest, bar none. I mean,
Yeah.
fries included.
Fit for a queen. This is what Emmanuel Macron eats every day. Hi, I'm Hannah.
And I'm Shay, and we're International.
Today we're making French food. France's medieval cities, Mediterranean beaches, art museums, and booming fashion scene are only some of the amazing things it has to offer. France is seen as one of the spearheads of culinary technique and design, and some of the beauty of this Western European nation is conveyed through the art of food. Like many other large nations, this cuisine varies from region to region, but one thing the whole of France is known for is its use of butter, wine, and fresh herbs in its cooking. There are honestly so many great dishes which have come from this country that choosing only a few proved to be challenging. But we decided to make a classic, coq au vin, which is originally made with rooster and wine. We stuck with chicken for obvious reasons. We served that with a buttery side of pomme puree, the silkiest potatoes you'll ever eat, sautéed kale and bacon, and a crusty French baguette, which did not disappoint.
So, today's entree is classically French, coq au vin. I've never had this dish before, but I've had different types of drunken chicken. So essentially, it's a very simple, basic concept. Typically, a whole rooster is cut into pieces and marinated in red wine, and then it's cooked in a Dutch oven for a long time. So it's a really tasty red wine braised chicken dish. I cannot wait to get started. Alright, it's time to marinate the chicken. So what I have over here is 4 chicken leg and drumsticks, like they're also called quarters sometimes, which I trimmed up. I'm just gonna keep 4 of these in this dish so we can marinate it. There's about 3 pounds of chicken. I'm using dark meat over here, but what is traditional is like a whole rooster. Where am I gonna find a whole rooster now? Truly, French cooking really intimidates me. It's all real fancy. Fancy doesn't necessarily mean difficult though, as I found out with this dish. So this dish with this super intimidating name is actually fairly easy to do. Make sure that your hands are clean and your chicken hands are not touching your other things. So this is just like a nice pinch of salt. The only way to ruin this dish is to under-season it. The ingredients are really simple and there aren't a lot of them. So just make sure that, use them liberally. Now we're gonna add 1 teaspoon of pepper. This is freshly ground. And then I'm going to put in a couple of bay leaves over here. These are like 2 bay leaves. This is like 4 or 5 sprigs of thyme, the fresh kind. You can always use dry, but if you have the fresh one, it's good. And now time for the magic ingredient. This is like 3 cups or almost a full bottle of red wine. So this dish comes from Burgundy. So use a kind of wine that comes from Burgundy, if you can. I mean, Pinot Noir is a pretty good option. Don't use cooking wine, use wine you would drink. So this is like a really fancy $13 bottle of wine. Super fancy. You know how it's really fancy? If the bottle opens up like this and there's no cork? Why be shy of 1 full bottle? I'm just gonna pour the rest of that in there. Okay, so I'm just gonna cover this up and put it in the fridge for like up to 2 hours. You can do overnight, you can do longer, but 2 hours is the very minimum. See you in 2 hours.
There are few things in this world more French than a baguette, and that's what we're going to make today. A baguette is the perfect bread to go with any kind of hearty stew, dipping in some juices from some clams, any kind of dipping scenario. French bread is there for you for that. And we're gonna use this for our coq au vin today. All right, it's baguette time. When you weren't looking, I proofed my yeast, which is basically mixing water and yeast to make sure everything is working and active. So I mixed about 2 ounces of water with 1.5 teaspoons of active dry yeast. And it is active, spoiler alert. I have 16 ounces of bread flour that I'm going to mix 1 teaspoon of kosher salt into. Just kind of mix it in there. All right, transfer to the big bowl. Into this, we will add the yeast and water mixture. Oh my gosh, it's just so alive. Kind of mix it in there. And then we're going to slowly add our cool water. This is 10 ounces of water. You might not need all of it. Just kind of slowly mix it in. Just keep pouring water until this becomes a shaggy dough. The beginning of this recipe is kind of similar to the challah I made for our Israel episode. So I'm gonna start using my hands now because this is just the best way to really feel out the dough situation. Until you have that shaggy dough consistency. Our dough is going to need to rest for a little while, for 30 minutes, and then I'm going to knead it and punch it a little bit more, and we're going to let it sit for another hour and a half. Okay, so the dough doesn't look like it has risen this much, but we've never made French bread before. We don't know if this is how it goes, so we're just going to stick with the recipe. I floured a clean work surface, and I'm just going to knead this dough, kind of like, you know, kind of punch it. So just knead this a few times and then put it back in the same bowl to rise for another hour and a half to 2 hours. All right, so our dough took a little longer than we had expected for it to get to this level. I'm going to cut our dough into 4 pieces because we're going to make 4 baguettes. I'm going to try to do this as evenly as possible, but we know I have a track record. Okay, so I've formed some imperfect little logs here with the dough, and I'm going to pop these on a floured baking sheet, and we're going to put some plastic on top and let them rest for about 45 minutes. Let them rise a little more, then we'll bake them. Okay, our baguettes are done resting. They've been sitting for about 45 minutes. They have gotten a little bigger. They're not perfect, but neither am I. So I'm going to sprinkle these with some flour. Our oven has been preheating to 450, and we are going to first put this tray of water on the bottom rack. This is for steam reasons, so I'll just pop it in there, BRB. So I've transferred these onto 2 oiled baking sheets. So what I'm gonna do is just kind of snip little cuts into the top, because this is what you're supposed to do. 450 degrees for 35 to 40 minutes.
Beautiful. Now it's time to fry up some bacon. I think I may have said this to you before. The smell of frying bacon is my favorite smell in the world. So what I have over here is some extra thick cut bacon. It's like extra thick. So if you don't have access to something like this, maybe just get like uncut slab and slice it up yourself. This is about half a kilogram. Not this entire amount is going into our cocoa one, but you'll see what I'm doing. What we're trying to do over here is, get that nice seared fond. Yeah, so don't use your non-stick because we want it to stick. All right, so I'm gonna give this a little stir and let it cook for about 15 minutes. While my bacon cooks, I'm just gonna pull my chicken out and I'm gonna thoroughly pat it dry. It's important that you pat it dry because that's the only way you can get it to brown. Okay, so it looks like our bacon is ready to come out. I'm just gonna use a spider, pull this out. Look at this, it's so nice and crispy and brown. So we're gonna save all of this bacon grease because it's a flavor bomb and we don't want to have it go to waste. But we don't really need this much bacon grease, so I'm just gonna reserve it into a different container. Okay, so my chicken pieces have been thoroughly dried with a paper towel. It's got this weird dark red color because of the red wine. It's kind of interesting to look at. So I poured some of that reserved bacon fat back into this Dutch oven. Not a lot, we just need about like 2 to 3 tablespoons. I'm just gonna nestle some of these chicken pieces in there and we're gonna fry them on both sides. So I've pulled these chicken pieces out. I'm a little bit disappointed because the skin tore. I mean, I was trying to go for the whole crispy brown crust. But yeah, well, this is a pretty forgiving dish and this is going back and it's gonna cook for like over an hour. So it's not like the skin would have retained its crispy consistency anyway. So I'm gonna try not to beat myself up too much about this and get on with this dish. Same bacon fat, now it has some chicken fat in it. It's super tasty, it smells real good. So what we have here is 1.5 onions. So this is just like a yellow onion. I'm just gonna saute this real quick. Add like a nice pinch of salt. So what the salt does is it draws the moisture out of the onions and it's gonna help deglaze the pot. All those sticky brown bits at the bottom, That's where the real flavor of any stew lies. Now that I've given the onions a head start, it's been about 30 seconds or so. I'm just gonna add the mushrooms in there. I'm just gonna saute this once again and then add my carrots. Okay, so our onions are starting to brown, and this is a good time to add like about 3 cloves of garlic and about 1 teaspoon of tomato paste. I'm just gonna cook this a little bit, like say about a minute, and then mix everything together. Lately, Hannah and I have become pyros. So we just like setting things on fire. So whenever we have an opportunity to light something on fire, like in a grill or like in a recipe, the Europeans seem to love that. So yeah, we're not gonna stay behind. This is like almost a full shot of cognac. Do not do this at home. I got a free wax. That was not as impressive as I thought it would be. My hands are fine. No burning.
Burning handers.
Burning handers. Ooh, now I know why they add that brandy in there. It smells really good. Flambe. That's where I grew up. Flambe. No, it's Bombay.
You're on fire.
No, the pot was, but then I put the lid on and now it's not on fire anymore. So this thing is like nice and tasty. I mean, I guess. And now I'm just gonna nestle those par fried chicken pieces in there. And then I've got these carrots. So like I've cut it into smaller pieces. I'm just gonna kind of like randomly tuck it in. You remember this marinade, right? That I asked you to reserve. So pour this over the chicken and the carrots. All right, so we have just about the right amount of wine to cover up our chicken. So now I'm gonna bring this to a boil. So I guess I'm literally watching as a pot comes to a boil. So our chicken has been going for about 15 minutes and it looks like already quite a lot of the wine has reduced. So now I'm just gonna turn it down to the lowest possible heat. Now I'm gonna put this lid on and check back in 30 minutes, at which point I will flip the chicken and let it go for 30 more minutes. Okay, so our chicken has been cooking for about 30 minutes and now I'm gonna make this French ingredient called beurre manière. All that means is kneaded butter. So it's equal parts of butter and flour, and you're just supposed to mix it together, and it's usually used to thicken soups or stews or things like that. So I just have like 2 tablespoons of flour here and 2 tablespoons of butter. Kind of mix it together with a spoon until it forms like a nice cohesive mixture. Look at this. So it's turned into this beautiful butter flour ball. Beurre manière. It'll prevent the dough from forming lumps. Who would have known? I'll just let this sit over here for a second, and then do you remember the bacon that we fried up? What we're gonna do is split this into 3. A third of it is gonna go into this dish. A second third we're gonna reserve for the garnish. And the third is actually going into a little side dish that we're gonna be making. So I'm gonna flip all of these chicken legs. Smells amazing. Cocoa wine, Coco Chanel. Coco Chanel number 5. Coco Van number 5. Mambo number 5. So the third of the bacon goes in here, and yeah, this butterball. I'm just gonna dump this guy in there and give it a nice mix. The butter's all gone. Where'd it go? So I'm gonna put the lid back on and let it cook for another 30.
Pomme puree is the satin nightgown of mashed potatoes. It is extravagant and delicious and silky, and there's a lot of butter involved. So I really can't wait to make this. Pomme puree is delicious. If you haven't tried it, it really is a nice way to eat mashed potatoes. It's very good. So what I have here is 1 pound of Yukon Gold potatoes that I've peeled and cut into 1-inch pieces. I need to rinse these off, and then I'm gonna show you what we're gonna do. All right, so our potatoes are rinsed, and we're just going to combine the ingredients into this pot. This is 1 cup of whole milk. Yes, milk, not water. And we have white pepper. We're just gonna do a dash of this, and a couple pinches of salt, maybe half a teaspoon. I'm gonna turn this on to medium heat. Our potatoes are simmering in the milk. I'm just going to cover this, reduce the heat to low, and let it simmer for 35 to 40 minutes. Okay, so pomme puree, it's time to mash our pommes. So main ingredient in this is not potatoes, it's butter. This is 1.5 sticks of butter that I've cut into small pieces and refrigerated. You saw that earlier. I'm gonna put some of these butter cubes into these hot potatoes. Oh yeah, so this is supposed to be, like I said, the creamiest of the creamiest potatoes. I mean, just really nice and silky. So when you think you have enough butter, put more butter in. Like right now I'm like, there's probably too much butter in here. So I'm gonna add some more. Hot potato, cold butter. Okay, so I'm switching to a whisk now, just kind of making sure all the butter is incorporated with the potato. Make sure to taste for seasoning. We're gonna add just a small pinch of salt, not too much, and garnish with an herb of your choice.
As is true for any dish, the garnish is one of the most important parts of the coq au vin. This is like a dish that's been simmering for a little while, so we want to add like a little bit of freshness to this. And the way the classical French techniques do that is by sauteing a little bit of mushroom and some butter. As we all know, butter is like a key component of the French flavor profile. So I'm gonna also saute these little pearl onions. This is about 2 tablespoons of butter that's been melting in our non-stick skillet. I'm just gonna add these pearl onions in there, and I'm just gonna let this saute on like a low to medium heat. We want this to brown a little bit. This is salted butter, so I'm not gonna add any more salt to it, but then if you had some unsalted butter, feel free to add a little bit of salt at this stage. And mushrooms don't really get overcooked, so you don't need to worry about that. You can just put the mushrooms in there. So I'm just gonna give this like a nice gentle saute until it slightly browns. We're not trying to, you know, like obliterate this. Remember, the point of this thing is to garnish it and to add a little bit of freshness. And I really hope you don't forget the other half of the bacon that I asked you to save. All right, so this has got the right amount of browning. So I'm just gonna take this off and yeah, until we're ready to use it. The beauty of coq au vin is that it gives you most of the components for like a super tasty side. This is the quickest ever side that we've made on Dinner National, but this is like super delicious and you will see why. So what I have over here is some of the bacon grease that we had reserved from earlier. And this is the same buttery, oniony pan. And I've got this kale, like pretty standard, shredded into like bite-sized pieces. That's all my kale. I'm gonna give it like about 30 seconds until this kind of shrivels up and shrinks a little bit. Hit it with a nice pinch of salt. So our kale is mostly cooked through, and I'm gonna add the bacon. This is the same bacon that we had fried up earlier. This is the second third. Turn the heat off. Add a little dash of garlic powder and some freshly ground black pepper.
French food.
All right, let's eat some French food.
Yeah, I'm excited. Okay, yeah, I can't wait for the coq au vin. I have to try it immediately. The mushrooms, so good. Wow.
Do I even need to say anything? It's so delicious.
I've never had coq au vin. It's such a famous dish.
This piece of carrot, it just works really well.
The chicken is tender. It's just falling apart. It's really, really great.
Chicken is very flavorful. We've cooked this for so long. I mean, I don't necessarily taste the wine, but then there's this back note of wine.
Want some kale? Okay, kale and bacon. Right?
It's a really tasty flavor profile, and I think it works really well with the chicken. The bitterness actually cuts through the fattiness of the meal. Pomme puree.
So buttery.
From what I understand, it's also called Paris mash.
I mean, it's like delectable. I almost feel like I shouldn't be allowed to eat this. It's
Seriously.
like so good. Fit for a queen.
Wow. I'm not exaggerating when I say this. This probably might be the tastiest way to eat potatoes. Tastiest, bar none. I mean, fries included.
Oh yeah.
This might be better than fries, guys.
This is what Emmanuel Macron eats every day.
I think that gentleman is rather fit, so he probably does not eat 1.5 sticks of butter every day.
He does.
He should.
Hi, Emmanuel. Oh yeah, I want to break some bread. All right, I'm gonna break it. You hear it? You probably can't from there, but I should have done it in the mic.
That's crunchy.
It's crispy. On the outside, it's supposed to sound kind of hollow. It's a really, really good bread. We had some earlier with butter. It was perfect.
I'm just gonna dip some of this crusty bread into my cocoa juice and have it sop up all of that tasty, tasty wine, chicken, vegetable broth.
And I'm gonna do it heated because that's a great idea.
Woo! Cocoa wine.
Wow. This is incredible. I mean, let's really think how much butter went into everything though. Like, this whole meal is butter heavy. And that's okay sometimes, right?
I'm not even gonna say anything because this food is like so delicious. Even if it is extremely unhealthy, I mean, even if it were, I would still encourage you to eat it. I'm not a doctor, so listen to your doctor. But at the same time, listen to me. This is delicious.
Yeah, you should definitely try this at least once a day. Okay, let's eat this.
So we're gonna finish eating this delicious meal, and we hope to see you next week.
Try something new, y'all.